Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stuart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thanks for tuning in and listening. And we have Larry on board tonight for the hour, and we got a lot of news, so I guess one can determine where one wants to start. There's a new Bible code out, and by Barry Rothman, and I want to get into this just a little bit. It's kind of interesting, the words, and it has to do with the Inspector General and the report that keeps being delayed over and over and over. So anyway, the words in this report are Inspector General, Clinton, disgrace, matter, M-A-T-T-E-R, matter twice, and Comey. So what it appears to be is that this report that, I don't know if it'll ever get released, but they're definitely trying to stop it and slow it down. And but it does deal evidently with Clinton, with the cover-up, with the word disgrace. And remember, Comey was told that this was not to be termed anything but a matter, which has great legal significance, evidently. So this is all going to get very, very interesting. And the deep state, of course, is going to do whatever they can to stop all this. But I guess we have to add one caveat here, and that's Psalm 2, the biggest caveat of all. Psalm 2 does not exempt anyone of our leaders or our rich men or our corporate people from Psalm 2. So in other words, whether the people realize they're in it, and I believe some of them do, in this vast conspiracy to bring in a new world order, and along comes Trump and throws a cog into it. But this is all part of an overall agenda that the Lord obviously knew from the beginning of the world. And so to him, there is no delay, but to us, there probably is. What's your take on that, Larry?
Yeah, I think that, to him, it's a continuous scheme of things, and to us, we have delays poked in there, and a lot of times we just don't understand why the delays and how long some of them are. But that's from our human perspective. That's, his perspective is quite different, actually. As I've said many times before, God is not a man, so why do we even think he should act like one or think like one? Because he don't.
Yeah.
What's interesting, though, is that Torah code. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah, I was just saying what's interesting about that Torah code, though, is the fact that the FBI doesn't investigate matters. The FBI investigates crimes. And that's the problem. They wanted to call Hillary Clinton's situation a matter, so it would not be convened grand juries or subpoenas or any of that connection. So she was given a free pass. So from what I can tell in America, why are we actually having a Mueller, individual and group, convicting people of crimes? You can't get a Hillary or a Bill Clinton convicted of a crime. Not in America. That's just simply not right.
Well, that's the whole point. Manafort just got indicted, I guess, for something else, obstruction of justice. But Hillary Clinton, who destroyed 30,000 emails, took hammers to her computers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but that's not considered obstruction. But what amazes me is the American people themselves. Here we have absolutely blatant contradictions, and nobody's doing anything about it. And because nobody's doing anything about it, and the American people won't rise up and say, you are going to do something about this, or we'll impeach everybody. In this nation, we do have the right to rise up and put an end to this kind of stuff. Nobody's doing it. But what bothers me more, and why I keep referring back to Psalm 2, is that Trump isn't doing anything about it either. It doesn't appear like anything is being done about it other than investigation after investigation, revelation after revelation, evidence after evidence. Everybody's walking around. Nobody's being brought before a grand jury other than minor offenses compared to the high treason that's been going on. And so that's why I refer back to Psalm 2, that everybody's in this together, whether they, it's a stage play. Because either Psalm 2 is telling us the truth or it isn't. And this is a vast, not a right-wing conspiracy, not even a left-wing conspiracy. It's a satanic conspiracy. And the Lord, Satan is simply using his human dupes to bring about what he wants to bring about. And he does it actually with the Lord's blessing because of sin in the world. And, any nation that forgets God is turned into hell, according to the Bible, and the American people certainly have forgotten about God. And even the Christians basically have likewise thumbed their nose at the Lord, and they will not do anything the Lord tells them to do. So this is all going to get fascinating as we go in. What do you think? I just think there's no solving of this issue for the United States. We're going in. We're going under judgment.
Well, I know that a lot of people, when Trump came into office, that their mind couldn't wrap around the scripture that says we would have healed Babylon, but she will not be healed. And guess what? It looks like that's exactly what is playing out because we've got the Democrats and Republicans, the deep state, all of Congress, the Supremes. We've got all the judges that are totally against Trump. They're not going to allow healing, even though Trump, going into his second year now, has really he's really floated the economy, and it has gone up and up and up, and unemployment has gone down and down and down, and they cannot give him a moment's credit. They refuse to allow him any credit for anything he's done, and they are certainly determined that they hate Trump more than they love America, because they would rather see America fail than to give Trump 1 ounce of credit, Stuart.
Yeah, I don't think they understand what they're doing, frankly. I see on the far left, it's a communist operation. Communists lie through their teeth anytime it's convenient, or to further the agenda. They're no different than Islam, which teaches them that they can lie anytime to bring about their global caliphate. And so truth doesn't matter anymore. In fact, Jesus warned that as we approach the last days, it would become a huge, huge deception. And that's exactly what it has. And as far as America healing itself, never happened. We're going down, and I know people don't want to hear that. They want to believe that Trump somehow is going to bail them out. Not according to the Bible, he isn't. And in fact, I would think that the Lord probably is highly irritated at some of these so-called Christians who, rather than turn to God and ask for the nation to be forgiven, like Daniel the prophet did, and plead for mercy for the nation, they put all their trust in this Donald Trump. He's going to solve everything. No, he isn't. He can't. The only one that can solve everything is the Lord himself. But that's been rejected by and large, which tells me that the people are really married to the world. They're married to their political systems and beliefs. They're married to the economic system, and they don't want to turn their back on any of it, which Jesus said you must do. You can't serve both God and mammon. So people have to make up their mind, and they won't. which of course leads to them being rejected by the Lord himself in Matthew chapter 7. Is sad, really. But anyway, I just thought that was kind of an interesting Bible code. Where do you want to start? You said you wanted to bring up Jericho and that. You know, and you reminded me of that off air. That's kind of startling because Jericho, the movie or series, that was way back. When was that produced?
That was produced in 2006. And that was, 12 years ago now. It's 12 years old. And matter of fact, I had watched the movie, and if people don't know, you can find the DVDs of Jericho, Season 1 and Season 2, on Amazon. I think probably there's some places you can go and watch it, but I'm not sure. But it's an interesting scenario because what movie Jericho is a false flag attack against America. In other words, nuclear detonations are in certain cities around the United States. And then what is rather telling, and the second time I viewed it is when I really caught on to the fact that during the movie, after the initial explosions, and these movies are really good for people to see because, Stuart, they actually show you what could happen with an EMP or a nuclear detonation in a big city near you and how things go south quickly. And
yes.
After a few days, though, what's interesting and what I wanted to bring out was the fact that who got blamed for this nuclear attack on America. And went all along, and as we watched the movie play out, Stuart, and so you know also that this was done by an inside rogue group of contractors, government contractors, and some of the government, including individuals high up in the Department of Homeland Security. And you'll remember the show. But you know, after the first few days, suddenly their missiles are fired in America, and they arc up into the sky, and some of the people in Jericho look outside at the missiles taking off because they're up in Kansas, I believe it is, and they said, well, wonder where those are going. Said, who fired them? And they said, well, we fired them. I guess we're going to hit our enemies that attacked us. And later in the show, guess what? The blame came on North Korea and Iran. Now, this was 12 years ago. This script was imposed into a movie, and they said that Iran used North Korean nukes to set off all the explosions in the United States, and therefore, in the movie, it brings out that we totally decimated and destroyed North Korea and Iran in the movie Jericho. It's really incredible, Stuart. What do you think?
Well, it seems to me that a lot of these Hollywood productions have inside information on what we could only call the plan and how they're going to, you know, of course, they're kind of liquid with their plans, but they have the overall strategy laid out, and lo and behold, here we are, and who are the main enemies? North Korea and Iran. And I don't believe for a second Donald Trump and Kim are ever going to reach any kind of agreement, and even if they did, it would be a trap. China has sworn to be our enemy, basically. Even, you know, they're still building up their military, and to keep adding more and more deadly military equipment, which I believe they're getting probably from not only North Korea but from Russia. And some of these weapons, like the hypersonic cruise missiles, there's nothing we can do to stop them. And the United States becomes very vulnerable. And for the American people who don't know who we are biblically, go into Isaiah chapter 47, Jeremiah 50 and 51, and then bounce over to Revelation chapter 18. That's all about the United States of America. It's called Babylon the Great. Now, there are people out there claiming that that is absolutely ridiculous. It's a lie. You can't believe it. And they cite Rome, for example, as being Babylon. Well, you can't do that when you've got hundreds of parameters and descriptions of which Rome doesn't fill hardly any of them. So I think what's happening, Larry, is they're getting confused with the spiritual aspects of Babylon and the physical aspects of the nation and the city, Babylon the Great. And the two kind of overlap in some areas, and they don't. If you're talking about the spiritual aspects of Babylon, then you're talking about mystery. It's right there in the Bible, mystery, mother of harlots. Well, mystery is both Masonry and the Vatican, which, by the way, Masonry runs. The Jesuits are basically Masonic in their nature. So you can't mix those two concepts together. And it is the description of the physical Babylon that is the United States of America. And that is what we're talking about when we talk about America being Babylon would not heal itself. Well, what are we watching? It won't. The American people themselves don't evidently have enough interest to even heal the United States, let alone our government, which is hell-bent for their new world order, and that includes both Republicans and Democrats. It's not a two-party system. That's all a fake. It's a facade. It's a one-party system with two heads. And the American people just don't seem to be able to put together that no matter whether they elect Democrats or they elect Republicans, where is it all head? New world order. Even under Trump, look at all the surveillance and the tightening of the screws on the American people right under their noses. And you still can't see it because Trump's going to save America. Well, if that's the kind of America that he wants, I don't think I want to live in it, and I don't think most people would either if they really realize what is actually coming about, and it's in the digital AI system, G5 and all the rest of it. What do you think? I'm kind of got on a rant there, but didn't mean to.
Well, you're right, Stuart, and they are pushing in this country the G5 system, just getting people hooked into that. I've read up some on the G5 system, and it's really linked into AI. That's artificial intelligence. Of course, Putin at the same time is talking about the artificial intelligence and how they're linked into it, and also China has gone just massively into AI and the G5 system. So it's worldwide now, and I guess the American people are just not listening all that much.
I think they'll welcome it. Here's a headline: Technocratic nightmare, or technocratic, I should say, nightmare. Amazon working with law enforcement to deploy invasive facial recognition technology. Amazon is working with local law enforcement to deploy all-encompassing facial recognition technology powered by AI. According to Amazon, the service recognition is so powerful that it can scan people in real time, track persons, identify and follow people of interest, can monitor up to 100 faces in group photos, crowded events, and public places such as airports. Amazon is marketing recognition to law enforcement and government agencies as a means to further surveil ordinary civilians and even obviously criminals. Several local police departments are ready to purchase the service in addition to their multiple fusion centers. Now, for those of you out there that don't know what a fusion center is, it is a local police operation where they gather intelligence and data and build profiles of local people of interest, which eventually, of course, will be everybody. This dovetails right back into China and their social credits system. It's an all-surveillance system. And if you get arrested for jaywalking, not paying a parking ticket, going to places they don't think you should go, et cetera, then your social credit scores get lowered and you get punished for it. You get excluded from being able to do this or do that. We are heading rapidly in that direction with our credit rating agencies. For the life of me, I can't imagine why the population in the United States has put a stop to this credit rating system that they have developed. It's totally invasive. It destroys people when things go wrong, et cetera, et cetera. And what right do these companies have to invade every bit of your personal information? And it just keeps spreading. It's getting more and more and more invasive all the time. I was just reading an article where now it's going to invade through, I don't know if it's Obamacare or whatever, but if you go to your local doctor, that's all recorded now. Every bit of it is recorded. How would you like to have all your personal information or things that you tell your doctor is on there, on your record? They can look at it anytime they want. This is the most invasive system, global system that they're setting up. I think that's why Jesus said, who can make war with the beast? You can't. Only the Lord Jesus Christ is going to put an end to it. He's going to put an end to the people that set it up. As I've said before, I'm not a religious person. Never was, never will be. It's amazing that I met Jesus Christ face to face, one-on-one. And what he showed me and what I have since been shown, I just can't imagine why the American people can't, for the life of me, figure out that they are being surrounded and there's a rope around their neck. They're being tied to a tree. They're on a chair, and the New World Order is busy cutting the legs off that chair. We're being hung, and you can't stop it. You're not ever going to stop it because of the total denial of the vast majority of the American people. Now, a lot of people yell at me for saying, well, the American people are stupid. I don't know if it's stupidity or just naivety or they just don't care. But it doesn't matter what the reason is. The result is the New World Order is coming to pass rapidly. And very, very soon, you're not even going to be able to leave your house without permission. You can't board an airplane now without having to go through Homeland Security's TSA. What they're doing is they're, invasive body searches. This is becoming routine now. It's a slow walk where even women can have a vaginal search made. I can't imagine the husbands in this country allowing their women to be felt up by some stupid TSA agent. This is how far we've gone, Larry. This is how far we've gone down the sewer. And the American male will not stand up for their women. They just bow down and they kiss the boots of TSA or anybody else. And that is why we are now in a place of tyranny, and we will not escape. I've been warning people for 25 years now. We are not going to escape. Bible prophecy will be fulfilled with 100% accuracy. There is no escape except through Jesus Christ. And even those who accept Jesus Christ, if you go into Matthew chapter 7, millions of them are rejected by the Lord himself, let alone what happens to the world. No, this is deadly serious when you look at what's going on in Hawaii, and now we had another, what was that, a huge volcanic eruption. And now a second one over there, and where is that? I forget.
In Guatemala.
This is only the beginning. This is only beginning. The Lord controls this, folks. He controls all this. It may look like it just happens, But when judgment comes, it is for serious. I would never forget when Red Elk, who, a Native American elder, came and he stayed with us for a couple days. It was very, very interesting. But he said it's one thing to get a tap on the butt or the shoulder by the Lord. Quite another when you get spanked. And America is about to get spanked, and it's already started. I noticed that the new, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but the new hurricane forecast is for more a bad season, I guess. Is that your take on it?
That's what I've heard, Stuart, is they're expecting a worse season than last year. And guess what? The Gulf of Mexico disturbances began early. We actually had a tropical system, came out of the Gulf and went across portions of Florida and, on up the coast. And this is already ongoing. So, and of course, Stuart, we've had the most bizarre weather where I live I can ever imagine, and it's going on across the whole country.
Yeah, it's amazing. And if you don't, folks, if you go out there and look on the World Wide Web and you go to various countries and you see what's actually happening to them and you put all that together, it's amazing what is going on in Earth changes. I've got, see if I can find it. I made a list of some of the things that are going on. It's amazing what's going on all around the world. And it's we've been very, very lucky, but that's what Bible prophecy says. It says that we sit as a queen and shall see no sorrow, but sorrow will come, widowhood, and the loss of children in one day, out of the blue, suddenly, with no warning whatever, bang. And everybody's life in America is changed forever. But here's a list of some of the stuff, and I'm sure Larry can add to it. Hawaiian volcanoes toll there's now 600 homes with no end in sight. And Larry, why don't you inject here as long as we're on this one, Hawaii's volcano situation, because you I don't know how much you can say about it, of a call you got from people out there.
Well,
because of the animal behavior. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I received an email from someone on the Big Island that I've known for a long time that just arrived there, and they were indicating that suddenly the other day they came to an intersection and they said animals of all kinds were running together. And it reminded you a lot of, when there would be stampedes of animals in Africa running from either a fire or some disaster. Well, all of these animals on the Big Island was running, and they were running away from the volcano side, and they ran to the water's edge on the other side of the island. And I'm talking about all animals. This was all kind of animals that wouldn't even hang around each other, were all lumped into one mass of animals. And they had run across that side to the side by the water as far as they could go. They were trying to escape something, and the individual that sent me the word said that these animals appeared scared to death and feeling some pretending doom or vibrations. They were picking up on that, and that was just before the 5.8 or whatever it was that they recently had, and more fissures showing up. But Stuart, this reminded me a little bit. Remember in Indonesia before that big earthquake, all the elephants and animals left the area.
Yeah, it was only the people that weren't smart enough to leave. That interesting that animals are smarter than we are. They detect these kind of things. They have ears that are different frequencies, and so they know when a massive earthquake is going to hit, and the earthquake obviously then supersedes the explosion of the volcano. I got a book here, and I know you know Larry Park. He's got a book out, and we can't find Larry anymore. I'm sure they told him to shut up. Forbidden Secrets of the Earthquake Revealed. And one of the things he gets into are animals. and earthquakes, which is kind of interesting, that animals detect the vibrations or the frequency or the rumbles that we don't hear, and they do. So that coming from Hawaii would indicate to me that whole thing is going to blow. And when it does, it's going to be horrendous judgment against people. Anyway, concerns grow. Here's another headline. After Yellowstone's largest geyser erupts for the 8th time since March. That's the Steamboat geyser, isn't it? If I recall right.
I think that's right.
So
isn't it the one,
all of a sudden that's erupting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, isn't that the one they call Old Faithful?
No, Old Faithful's different. This is another one.
Okay.
I thought it was, but it isn't. It's called the Steamboat Geyser, if I recall it correctly. And it's hardly ever goes off, but now it's going off all the time, which would indicate lava is rising rapidly in that particular area. They've had a lot of problems in Yellowstone that they're not reporting to the general public. And wasn't it Stan that said that they're kind of hiding everything now from the people, if I recall right?
That's what Stan Deo said, that they had shut off a lot of the monitors from the public that they were watching Yellowstone with.
Wow. Okay, another one. 99 dead following Fuego eruption. That's the latest volcano down there in Guatemala. Guatemalan authorities were warned to evacuate people 7 hours before it erupted but did not act. Guatemala struck by eruption from second volcano. That's the one I just talked about, Fuego, or however you do it. And here's an interesting note. I want your comment here, Larry. FEMA barges en route to Hawaii. A flotilla of FEMA barges, each able to hold 2,000 people in cramped conditions, set sail from a secret staging area near San Diego and are en route to Hawaii, says a FEMA employee speaking under conditions he remains anonymous. The vessels departed California June 5th, are traveling at a speed of 20 knots, will arrive in Hawaii on the 11th. Interesting number. Rather than berth at Port Allen or Hilo Harbor, the ships will drop anchor 10 miles offshore and use powerboats to ferry displaced persons to one of 3 FEMA housing ships. FEMA is on no mission of mercy. Anyone escorted into a FEMA barge will be incarcerated and transported to a mainland FEMA internment camp in Region 9. There they will be held captive by a controversial agency with a long history of imprisoning people against their will. And that's absolutely true. If you go in, remember the hurricane they had down there in Houston? Yeah. There was a guy who said he would not go in. He was interviewed by TV on one of the major networks, and he said, "I'm not going to go in there. They're killing people in there." The culling of humanity has long been going on, folks. They mean to kill you. They really do. There's a population reduction. You go on, I think it's deagle.com, DEAGLE or EL. It's one or the other. But go ahead and look at the population reduction scheduled for the United States and scheduled for North Korea. Relate that back to Jericho and destruction of North Korea. Now, how is that possible, Larry? They knew about that long ago, and it's in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And Stuart, that deal about the FEMA barges staying 10 miles off, boy, that reminds me a lot of Krakatoa. Have you ever watched that movie where those ships was way off from Krakatoa when that went off?
I never saw it, but I heard about it. But boy, obviously they would stay that far off because of the tidal wave. They could easily ride it out if they're that far out. But isn't that kind of telling? I mean, you get this report of animals fleeing. We get this report of FEMA barges, prison camps, really, ocean camps, departing California and heading out to Hawaii. They must know this is going to go. Probably the whole big island will go.
Yeah. Well, I would have to say for a move of FEMA from the West Coast towards Hawaii, as massive as that sounds, they know something.
Yeah. And they also must know something because they have had these, I don't know what you call them, exercises for refugees coming in from California and whatnot, going inland. So the states are preparing themselves for this. So they must know that if that goes, I don't know how big a tsunami it would create. It probably doesn't matter if it's over 50 feet. It's going to just devastate the West Coast up and down. Most of those port cities are virtually at sea level, and it wouldn't take much to wipe them out. They would have some warning, but it would only be like, 7 hours maybe? Not even that, probably 5 or 6 if Hawaii blows, yeah.
And actually, if it's a big enough, Stuart, if it's a big enough tsunami, that could really impact all the way from Alaska down to the tip of South America, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we've got to look at the Canary Islands and that situation there, and the prophecies about East Coast, West Coast tsunamis. Anyway, this is not going to be fun, folks, when this thing really starts to go. And it's already wiped out 600 homes. So what do you got there you want to bring up, Larry? But I'm going to look for something.
While you're looking for that, I was going to mention the fact that I'm finding out now. You know, I mentioned some time back that the county that I live in Oklahoma, has worked with ham radio operators and having emergency drills, et cetera, and I went to a number of their meetings. Well, I'm finding out the county south of me has begun that too, drawing in their ham operators and beginning to set up a grid system for something that's coming. And, you know, you said that was happening around you, so apparently all over the country, people are being prepared for something to happen.
Yeah, it's hard to tell whether it's going to be an EMP event or whether it's going to be a massive earthquake event or bad weather. Remember I can't think of her name right now, Janet Reno. No, it wasn't Janet Reno. Who was it? She was head of FEMA or Homeland Security, one or the other. Remember her? Yes. And she, in her farewell address, warned the American people that we were going to face extreme conditions. They already knew it. She resigned, 8 years ago, 9 years ago now?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. Okay, here's another one for you to think about. Abrupt Earth changes. In a grand solar minimum, cosmic rays trigger larger flash floods, hailstorms, and due to jet stream disturbance and mixing of atmospheric layers, local long-duration precipitation events called atmospheric rivers, and that was coined before that phrase ever came to being. The bots under Cliff High reported on it. At the same time as the increased local flooding events occur, more cloud cover and less sea surface water heating means less evaporation of seawater, specific humidity is reduced, overall rainfall amounts then become reduced despite regional precipitation records and flooding. In general, water tends to remain in the cloud cover for longer durations. When clouds are rained out, that happens violently, whereas the regular transport into the continents is actually diminished. So therefore, what they're talking about are droughts. In a grand solar minimum, which, by the way, folks, we are in right now, local droughts and crop failure can be caused not only by less rains and more winds, but simply by lower specific humidity. This may not even show up on climate records. Such droughts will more likely be misinterpreted as droughts from warming and evaporation. As a further complication in a grand solar minimum, cosmic rays that make it to Earth and enter the surface trigger earthquakes and volcanoes and other tectonic anomalies. The penetrating particles, cosmic ray murons, from space decrease the viscosity of silica-rich magma. Explosive volcanic eruptions are therefore triggered by cosmic rays. The volcano is nothing but a bubble chamber. Isn't that where we're kind of at right now?
Certainly seems to be, Stuart. Certainly seems.
Wow, amazing.
And you know, at the same time, Stan Deyo has been warning too of the West Coast, California especially, of volcanic activity. And I know Dutch Sense has been warning recently about that too. And a lot of the earthquakes are like less than a kilometer deep. So, that's less than a mile. So we're seeing magma movement.
Well, what's going on down your way? I notice you people are getting earthquakes daily down there.
Well, we had a brand new... Yeah, I was just going to say we had a brand new report in today's newspaper from Idabel, Oklahoma, McCurtain Gazette, reporting that USGS had found new deep trench faults in Oklahoma that go on up into Kansas and down into Texas, apparently. So there's more to it than they've been telling us.
Well, that's kind of interesting, wasn't it, around the Idabel or Broken Bow? Where is Broken Bow in relation to Idabel?
A few miles north of Idabel.
So it'd be right along that big fault, which you saw in a vision open up.
Yeah, that's the same region, yeah.
Wow. So it's just a question of when this all starts, I guess. Let's get into the deep state and what they're trying to do with Trump. You've been following that more than I have. What's going on there?
Well, the last couple of days have really been interesting, and as a matter of fact, Trump is at the G7 meeting in Canada today, actually. And what's interesting is never before happened. I was watching some information on One America News and another investigation into Bilderberger on Newsmax.com last night, and they were reporting some anomalies that were occurring. And I'd like your opinion on this, by the way. They're saying never before has a Bilderberger meeting occurred at the same time as a G7 meeting that's going on, because members from both, it would interfere with traveling from one place to the other. The G7 is in Canada. The Bilderberger meeting is in Italy. And so this is what's interesting. And then there was someone from the deep side was talking and gave information that said that was on purpose, because they knew that Trump would be drawn to the G7 meeting to defend and work on the tariffs and all the problems they're having economically with the different organizations, and especially the EU, and it would tie him up there. So now this is what's interesting, Stuart. The Bilderberger meeting going on in Italy, for the very first time, representatives of the Vatican have come to the Bilderberger meeting. This has never happened before. And they said that the reason that they didn't want Trump at the Bilderberger meeting is because that was the New World Order group, and Trump is number one on the list of priorities to remove. So it's all about Trump, pretty much. And, of course, this will impact America. This will impact a number of things. But Insider had said, and it was repeated during the interview, that the deep state, in other words, the Democrats and Republicans, have been told already before the Bilderberger Meeting that America has to rid itself of Trump now, and the threat was that if America did not do that immediately, that America would not have a seat at the table of the new world order that they're putting together. So this is a big threat. And also at the same pressure, Stuart, on the deep state to remove Trump. And then that was yesterday, and now already today we see Mueller firing off, another indictment against Manafort, and the pressure's rising. So we're in a real time of interesting scenarios that are occurring simultaneously.
Yeah, this would be a time for the deep state to do a huge false flag somewhere. They've got to get rid of Trump somehow. And of course, there is always the possibility of assassination, like they did with Kennedy and attempted with Reagan, or they could impeach him. But impeachment would be a very slow process. And if they got to do it immediately, the only other way that they might be able to do it would be a economic collapse, or we get into a war and everybody blames it on Trump and we just automatically throw Trump out. I mean, deep state, I should say communists, have infiltrated just about every level of government in every state of the Union. And it would not take much if we got into a war of some kind, maybe just a limited one, for them to rally the people against Trump and just get rid of him, and along comes Obama. Now, I know there are a lot of people say Obama's never going to come back as president. Well, I don't know, but he well could, and he's obviously laying the groundwork to either do that or to, in fact, I was reading an article where they think maybe even Michelle might be running for president. What do you think about that one?
Well, I do know, Stuart, and one of my concerns is, I told you about the movie Jericho, which I'd watched all over again so I could get my facts straight, that there appeared to be in that movie a false flag and then blaming Iran and North Korea and completely destroying both of those nations by nuclear strikes. And this is what's interesting, Stuart. If they decided, we're in a time frame where they really do need a false flag to move this thing forward to remove Trump. And we've got Trump now, right after the G7, this coming week, he's going to be in Singapore to meet with Kim Jong-un. That's another very interesting thing because, Stuart, Kim Jong-un has already begun to remove from power some of his top generals and officials in North Korea. And I saw a report, let's see here, Breitbart News had this morning. It said, new report said Kim Jong-un fears assassination attempt in Singapore. Now, remember, Stuart, also, you're aware of Henry Gruver. He had the visions of America and Russia and all of that. Henry Gruver this year had an experience where he was shown, he was literally in a room and watched the assassination of Kim Jong-un. And he actually went to South Korea, tried to get into North Korea, and warned Kim Jong-un, with the exception of the Lord spoke to him clearly, told him to leave, that he wasn't there to warn Kim Jong-un. He was only had been shown that to pray for Kim Jong-un to be ready for that to happen. So, Stuart, we certainly, if Kim Jong-un goes to Singapore and is assassinated or the attempt assassination occurs, you mentioned the fact that maybe Kim Jong-un and Trump might be in trouble being together. So we have to watch that. I'll tell you what, we're in a real time frame here, and what's interesting is the fact, Stuart, that on our recent show with Stan Deyo, he gave a warning. It was kind of cryptic, but he said, we'll know more after the next several weeks, which I assume could mean 2 or 3 weeks, which would finish out June. So we're in a time frame. Anything could literally happen any day.
Yeah, he kind of indicated that it would be very interesting times, whatever that means. And, of course, we still don't know whether Prince Salman there of Saudi Arabia is alive or dead, or absolutely no news? Have you heard anything at all concerning him?
No, Stuart, we haven't. Matter of fact, people are still wondering, and as I've said before, we do know that the New World Order had some targets, and the targets was Trump, Netanyahu, Salman, and Putin, and we do know that there was an attempt or a conspiracy of an attempt assassination of Netanyahu this last week. That did occur. One thing I wanted to bring up to you, kind of get your opinion on this, Stuart. When we were talking on an earlier show with Augusto Perez, we recorded it at noon today. Augusto Perez was intrigued with the New World Order threat against the deep state about Trump being in the position he's in, and they needed to remove him because Augusto said that's very interesting. Augusto said that it's very possible that the Lord might remove the U.S. out of the New World Order, and it would be outside the New World Order for a period of time under Trump, possibly. And he was intrigued with that. What do you think, Stuart?
Well, that's possible because we don't really know what Trump is about other than he's the great revelator of corruption. He's judgment. We know that because Cyrus was a judgment against Babylon. And we also know that he's there for Israel. And the only thing left for Israel now is the temple, to bring the temple up, which is what the rabbis are all talking about. So we are very, very close to the Daniel's 70th week beginning. And there's no really way, I can't quite figure out how you know when it's actually begun. A lot of people say, well, there has to be a 7-year agreement made. But if you read Daniel carefully, that's not what it says. It says that a 7-year agreement is enforced basically militarily. The agreement itself is for 7 years. But that doesn't mean that it starts at Daniel's 70th week. So it's very mysterious, all the stuff that's going on. I guess I go back to my original comment that when we see Damascus become a ruinous heap, we'll know where we are on the Lord's timeline. And that doesn't appear to be very far off. What else you got? We got about 5-6 minutes left.
Yeah, I was going to mention also, you mentioned Isaiah 17 in Damascus, and a most recent post, Netanyahu had gone to Europe and was arguing with the UK and France and Germany about the Iranian nuke deal, and he was trying to get them to step into Trump's camp. Of course, we're not seeing that happening, and at the same time, the big three that were going to attack Iran originally were Salman, Netanyahu, and Trump. Now, Salman appears out of the program for the time being. We don't know what's happened to him. Trump's tied up with the G7 and I guess the slow-moving coup that's against him in the country. And Netanyahu's in Europe and about to come back. But you mentioned that fact. Russia has told Iran to get out of Syria. Iran has refused to do that and are moving troops down closer to the Lebanese border and Syrian border. And then most recently, and we haven't really reported on it, but there was a flash come across Debka file that reported that Trump was now moving more troops and missiles and materials into Israel, and also at the same time, and we're not hearing this in America at all, Stuart, at the same time, Trump is topping off the advanced arsenals of Israel for a war. And in the background, we're hearing that Trump and Netanyahu are about to go after Iran. So, wow, what can I say? What do you think?
Well, Trump did make the comment. He's not going to tell anybody what he's doing, what he's thinking, or how he's going to work. And that appears to be exactly what's going on. So you just have to monitor, like people like Debka files or reports coming out of Europe of troops movements or Navy ships spotted and this and that to kind of, all those are clues. So it appears to me that war is very, very close at hand, and they intend to do something, which probably will trigger Iran into Daniel 8's preemptive attack. And when they do that, then according to rabbis who have studied Daniel 8, say that it's the United States that will come after Iran and all but destroy it. But it's not a troops on the ground thing. It's an aerial bombardment. So we're very, very close, I think, to all this unraveling. You probably just wake up and it's on, or you get a flash on a TV set that it's on, and it kind of like a false flag here. We'll just hear about it. You know, I can remember 911 watching that on TV, and I remember Oklahoma City watching that. And it isn't until after the fact that you figure out how all this is all deep state planned to get the American people to rally. And they're going to have to get the American people to rally against North Korea if we do take it out, or they're going to have to be rallied against Iran so that they can, make it smooth. Because those kind of things are serious, and we got a lot of soldiers and troops over there, not only in Korea and South Korea and on the DMZ. I think, what do we have, 35,000 troops over there? And who knows how many troops we actually have in Israel and along the border of Syria. They're not telling us.
Well, we don't know. That's true, Stuart. We absolutely don't know. And I remember a few years back, the U.S. built an underground base in Israel that was going to be a U.S. base. So we don't know a lot to be underground. And that's why, Stuart, I tell people, and I try to stress every time I get a chance, for people, if you have nothing else, have a shortwave radio. You can pick up signals all around the world and news when you need it. But if we ever go blackout here in America, you're going to need some source of some type of news. Yeah.
I don't think people are really prepared. I know they say, well, you can prepare for 2 years. Well, that's very difficult. I'm working on a Survival on the Cheap ebook, which I hope to have out very, very soon. By the way, before we close down, I want to remind everybody, come and visit nightshadowsradio.com. It's my new website. It's got a lot of stuff on it, and we're putting stuff up on it every day, and we're going to keep adding to it. And by all means, go visit it. And it's kind of an offshoot from Lightgate, the Lightgate blog. And this is likewise radio. Night Shadows Radio also has its own blogs and videos, audios, all kinds of things are going up there. And by the way, join the Night Shadows Club. And it's only $9.95 a month, and it helps support what we're trying to do. And we really do need support. It's expensive to do this stuff. It takes a lot of time. Larry, any final comments?
Well, I was just going to tell people, those that don't know you very well or listen to you, that you had a Lightgate website at one time that was incredible, and it had incredible data on it, and that was all stolen from you over the night. They had taken everything, and I know people don't realize that happened. So go there and view that information while it's there.
Yeah, we had millions of people were actually on our trueinsight.com website. When I was on the Art Bell show, we had literally millions of people were visiting it, and that all got wiped out. So, and the Lightgate.us got wiped out as well, and some of it's software, some of it isn't. Anyway, thanks a lot, Larry, for coming on, and folks, really do go over to nightshadowsradio.com and visit the website. We're putting up an awful lot of stuff you need to know about and hear about. Anyway, I guess that about does it tonight. So, I don't know. We're in bad times. Bad times are coming. It may not seem like it, but it's going to hit very suddenly when it does. We already got the clues. Anyway, good night, everyone. Take care. Heads up. Your redemption draweth nigh. Good night, everyone.